And we are live.
Good evening. Welcome to Northborough Cultural Council's meeting this evening. I call the meeting to order. Any seconds? Okay, great. Thank you.
I second it, Selby.
Thank you, Craig. I just have to read some information about remote meetings. This open meeting of Northborough Cultural Council is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Northborough Cultural Council are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows Northborough Cultural Council to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature a public comment due to a technical difficulty. However, you can always send us an email through our email posted on our town website. We do not have any speakers or presenters tonight, so I don't think I have to read those ground rules. But I do have to read that each vote taken by the board or committee will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, so I'd like to take attendance now. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Craig Cox. Oh, we couldn't hear you, Craig.
I'm here.
Okay. Suzanne Cox.
Here.
Heidi Knight is absent. Big Wen.
Here.
Lori Tyrone Pandit.
Present.
Leslie Shore.
Here.
Terry Underwood.
Here.
Okay, and we have a staff member, David Parenti.
I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. And now we can move on to our agenda. The first item on our agenda is approval of minutes from 1/16/2020 and 2/6/2020. Is there any motion to accept the NCC meeting minutes from January 16, 2020?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
I
As
second the
written.
motion.
Great. Are there any discussions about the meeting minutes from January 16, 2020?
They look good to me.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, yeah, we'll just second them. And we already had a second, so that's good. And then if there are no other further discussions or questions about the minutes from January 16, 2020, I'd like to have a roll call, please. When I call your name, if you approve the minutes, please say aye. Craig Cox.
Aye.
Suzanne Cox.
Aye.
Heidi's absent. Big.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Leslie.
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
Okay, and I say aye too. Meetings have been approved. The motion has been approved. The next, is there any, now we move on to the second meeting minutes that we need to approve from February 6, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 6, 2020?
I motion.
Great, second.
I'll second the motion.
Wonderful. Any discussions about those minutes? No? Okay, we move on to the roll call. And remember, if you were absent during that meeting, Please say abstain because you would not have been in that meeting. Craig Cox,
Aye.
Suzanne Cox,
Aye.
Heidi's not here. Bick,
Abstain.
I say aye too. Lori,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
Great. Meeting minutes from February 6th has been approved. The next agenda item is really a housekeeping discussion item for us, which the last time we were together was at our wonderful grantee reception that took place on February 27, 2020. And I just figured that we needed to kind of visit that day and acknowledge what happened. Any comments about our grantee reception that took place?
The music was very good.
Yes, definitely. Northborough Area Community Chorus and Ed Harlow were wonderful. Any other comments?
We had a really large attendance and it was like well represented. We didn't have as many of the grantees as we did the last year, but it was still in the majority. It was very nice.
It was great.
Mhm.
And we had Representative Gregor attend our event, as well as receiving citations from Senator Chandler's office and Senator Aldridge's office. So that was very nice. We had Luis Cotto join us as well from MCC and MCC's Mass Cultural Council. Any other comments or?
Yeah, Selby, speaking of those citations, I still have those. If you recall, they weren't all processed by the state, and we have not distributed those yet.
Okay, so Craig, you and I can somehow make sure that we mail them to the recipients. Unfortunately, right after our event, COVID-19 broke and we were not able to get together for a while. We still can't, but we'll figure out a way to mail them. Thank you for the reminder. I'm gonna take a note. And I just also want to tell you that reading the article published by Community Advocate, prepared by Melanie, was wonderful. So that, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it was published, I believe, back on March 16th, 2020 about our event. And they did a great job.
And
So
the community advocate?
I think
Maybe
I
should
have
go
it.
and
I think
grab
I
it
kept
for-
a copy.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, okay.
It was wonderful.
I'm
And
sure
they-
you can find it still on the website.
Melanie Patricia did a great job.
I should grab it for our website, right?
Yeah, that would be great. All right, so I'm gonna move on. Are there any other discussions about the grantee reception? No? Okay. The next agenda item is about grant reimbursement requests. Craig, would you mind sharing the latest request we had for reimbursement?
Yeah, so I just processed the grant for the Mass Educational Theater for $400. They did hold their event, so that has been sent to the town, be processed as usual.
Wonderful, and I'm so glad they snuck in their event right at the end of February before all this happened.
So of all the grants that we approved, 3 now have been processed.
Thank you, Craig. And that's our updates on reimbursement. Next item on agenda is grant modification and extension requests. So I'd like to read that out to you, that via email, we have received the following modifications and or extension requests from our grant recipients. So Northborough Free Library Summer Concerts Day has been changed to November 14, 2020. The original date was spring of 2020. And Harlow's 6th annual Solar Jazz Festival changed to August 22nd, 2020. And the original date was June 13, 2020. Northborough Area Community Chorus is working on modifications and new dates for their concert series. And Scott Jameson's event changed to September 26, 2020. And the original date was in June, sometime in June that I can't really recall. I think it was 13th or 16th. And so we are going to have to review and per MCC request and make, yes, Lori.
Did you mention the Historical Society?
I did not. But did you receive an email from them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Can
We
you
have,
please let me know?
I think I have. Yeah, she sent it to you as well, but I can resend it.
Okay, I must have missed it. I'm sorry. So what did they say? Was it a cancellation or an extension?
I think they are rescheduling an extension.
Extension, okay.
Yes.
And Vic, yes.
I'm sorry, that was too fast for me to take notes. Can you just say the entity and the new date?
Yes, I'll be happy to do that. And also, I will email you these too. Okay, so Northborough Free Library Summer Concerts, November 14, 2020. Ed Harlow's 6th Annual Solar Jazz, August 22nd, 2020. Northborough Area Community Chorus working on modifications. They will provide us info later. Scott Jameson's event at the library changed to September 26, 2020.
And the Northborough Historical Society changed from April 24th to December 4th.
Thank you for that information, Lori. I somehow skipped that. Wonderful. Any other grant modification and or cancellation? I think that Northborough Area Community Chorus canceled their summer concert series, but we did not receive an email from them informing us. And as you know, MCC, Mass Cultural Council, would like us to receive written emails about changes to the grant. So I will reach out to them and confirm that.
Selby,
Yes.
in a previous discussion, I believe you said Megan Kelleher and the project Fourth Wall actually had occurred.
I believe so, because that was prior to.
Yeah, the scheduled date was January 29th.
It should have happened. So,
So I'm bringing up, I have not seen the paperwork for a reimbursement request there.
Thank you for that reminder too. Do you want to follow up with her, or would you like me to?
That'll be fine. I will.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's housekeeping, but since we can't decide on if the granting criteria from the modifications at the moment, I would like to make a motion to create corresponding NCC criteria and guidelines to evaluate grant modification, extensions, and or cancellation requests due to COVID-19 pandemic under the guidance of Mass Cultural Council. As you know, Mass Cultural Council gave us guidance to create our criteria. Any seconds?
I second.
Any discussions on this? Okay. Yes, go ahead, Suzanne.
I just think that it's a good idea. We should be, per MCC's guidelines, as supportive as possible of the artist, especially during these troubling times for them.
Yeah, and creating guidelines is on tonight's agenda too, so we can hopefully just move on to that. Any other questions or discussions about it? No, okay. So then I'd like to do a roll call, please. Craig Cox.
Aye.
Suzanne Cox.
Aye.
Vic Wen.
I approve.
Lori Trump-Pendit.
Aye.
Leslie Shore.
Aye.
Terry Underwood.
Aye.
And I say aye too. Okay. I like to share my screen now because our agenda item number 5 is the lengthiest one, and it requires some attention from us and maybe even looking at the wording carefully and making sure we got it right. So here I go. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, so I may not be able to see everybody while I'm sharing the screen. If you have any questions or you like to comment, please just unmute yourself and call my name and I'll make sure that you get a turn. So agenda item number 5, proposed procedures on evaluation of grant event changes due to COVID-19 pandemic under the published guidance of Mass Cultural Council. Before we go into any discussion, as you know, Mass Cultural Council has been working very hard. We've been receiving emails, at least one email weekly, it seems like, if not more. And they have now a special page under their website, mass-culture.org, I believe, under the guidelines, specifically for COVID-19 situations. And I tried to put some wording based on what we have all read and seen to create this agenda item. So I was on one of the Mass Cultural Council's webinars. It was held for local cultural councils. And our liaison from Mass Cultural Council, our program manager, suggested that since COVID-19 is not going anywhere, and it's hard to hold meetings under these conditions, instead of the entire council coming together to approve these modifications and evaluate them, that we select 1, 2, or 3, like a subgroup from our council, to review and approve and or deny them based on the criteria that we will be generating. So based on that format, I like to make a motion to, I want to say it kind of carefully, to appoint me to review and approve, deny any request for modifications and or extensions based on criteria agreed by the local cultural council. Any motion? I'm sorry, anybody seconding the motion?
Second the motion.
Okay, discussions? I do have a discussion, actually. I like to have a couple more members doing it with me. I think it would provide safety and security that we're doing a comprehensive job, and if one of us is not available or gets sick for any unforeseen situation happens, we're able to continue with this process. Are there any members interested in joining me in review of this? Leslie?
Aye.
Oh, you are interested? Okay. How about anybody else?
I can help, Sylvie.
That's wonderful. So I guess we have to any other discussions about this?
I just want to clarify that this subcommittee is going to essentially have full power to approve and deny any changes that come in from the grantees, correct?
Correct, but that power will be based on the criteria that we will all be creating together. And again, going back to the fact that COVID-19 is still live and the situation changes every day. And even from just the recent browsing of the Mass Cultural Council site to this week's browsing, there are added items to the guidelines. So I think that this item may remain in our agenda for a while to review what our guidelines is and check with the MCC to see if any changes have been done to the guidelines, so we can also keep our own guidelines corresponding to theirs. Does that make sense?
So there's a question, will the team of 3 here be bringing back your recommendations, or as long as your decisions meet the guidelines, you're moving forward with it, or will you let us know what your approval denials are before you actually respond to the grantees?
I think the idea is to move on with these decisions, and also the kind of the feel you get from MCC is to be as open as possible while considering these modifications and extensions, and to support the artist community. But of course, that all has to happen under the guidelines. However, if there is something that we are not sure of, or we did not identify in our guidelines or criteria, those members should go back to the council and ask to look at the guidelines and see if it can be modified for that situation. That's why it's going to stay as a live document, because there are a lot of unknowns. We've never been in this situation before.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I think what we have to do is we have to go and finish voting on my motion of approving me for being the person to approve or deny any requests for modifications, extensions based on criteria agreed by the LCC. And then we have to do an amended version of that, so we can add Terry and Leslie to work with me. Does that make sense?
So we can, if amendments have resulted from the discussion, we can just do one vote on motion with amendments.
Okay.
The amendments being that you will be joined by two other members, Leslie and Ted.
I agree. When
Yeah.
you vote.
I like that. It's much more efficient. Thank you, Lori, for that suggestion. So I make a motion to approve. I make an amended motion, I guess, to approve myself, Leslie, and Terry as the subcommittee to review and approve and or deny any requests for modifications, extensions, and or cancellations based on criteria agreed by NCC.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussions or questions about this? Oh, yes, Leslie.
How will you, Terry, and I get together on this?
Well, we're
Zoom?
gonna probably get Zoom calls, yeah, to review them. Yeah. Okay, so roll call. Craig,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Heidi's not here. Big,
Approve.
Lori,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
and I also say aye. So that's great. Now we move on to 5B, and we're going to now continue to talk about NCC criteria guidelines, to create NCC criteria and guidelines for approval of requests for extensions only based on MCC's grant cycle recommendations due to COVID-19. So the first three bullets you see is basically guidelines from MCC directly. A written request, letter or email must be submitted by the grantee stating the new event date. The letter must clearly identify that the date is the only change in scope. Remember, we're discussing requests for extensions only. We're not discussing modifications in this item. Each time the event date changes, a new letter must be submitted to NCC. Final date for event extensions, December 31st, 2021. And if the event date is extended into the next grant cycle, which is 2020-2021 cycle, the applicant cannot apply for another LCC, and LCC stands for Local Cultural Councils, and Northborough Cultural Council is the Local Cultural Council of Northborough grant for the same event during that grant cycle. Is there a motion to approve these criteria and guidelines as presented?
I would make a motion to approve 5B.
I second.
Thank you. Discussions or questions?
I think this is good. I think, as we discussed, this gives all the grantees a good opportunity and some flexibility to try and get their events in if possible.
I agree. Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment that I would make sure that we, more so than tell them it's permissible, that we encourage them and support them, even if there are additional hurdles they have to jump through, that we assist them where possible to hold their events in some form or fashion.
Agreed. We'll have to reach out to them, definitely, with the new criteria. We should also publish them on our town website.
So the letter that we had already sent out to them at the outbreak of this in April, suggesting that we send an amendment, an additional follow-up letter to that with.
It wasn't an amendment.
I mean,
Sorry,
what?
Vic, go ahead.
No, like what we have here. Do any of these criteria change what we had already sent out to them? That we need to recommunicate via.
We did not create a criteria and send it out to them. What we sent out to them was a direct communication from MCC that came to us, telling us to get in touch with our grant recipients, that if there were any modifications in our extension request to their event, that they had to let us know in writing. So that was the only request that came from MCC, and that's what they have seen. So now we have to go back to them after we create our own guidelines, and let them know.
Give them more details.
Yeah.
So do we need volunteers to draft that letter?
Sure.
Right, or
I'm willing to assist, and especially the part of encouraging them to hold it, even though the energy they may feel they may not get the response that they were going to get and not as motivated. It may be a more important time for them to actually do these events for our communities.
Right. That's right, Suzanne, I agree. I think we need to get in touch with them. And again, remember that is a live document. It will change based on MCC and local criteria. We have to revisit this pretty much every agenda, and we have to be in touch with our grantees as we change, as there are changes coming down the pipelines. And their events can also be changed more than once, depending on how things go. So it's important.
So an alternative is maybe our letter is a little bit generic, but refers them to our website, which we can keep updated continuously. So today they see it, tomorrow is a little bit different, and by the time they decide to hold their revised, redated event, they should look on the website to see if there are any changes. Right. That way we're continually sending out mail every other week.
That's a great idea. We can just send a simple email to check our website regularly for updated COVID-19 criteria and guidelines.
Did you say you were going to do that, Suzanne? I'm not sure I heard that.
I would assist with Selby with it, yes.
Okay, we can work on it together via email. That's definitely a great point. And I like how efficient we're getting with communicating. And we have to, if we do updates, I think it's only fair that we send them another email saying, we just updated our COVID-19 criteria. Please go back to our website and check. So the next, do we have any more questions or discussions about 5B, the motion we just presented? No, okay. So we can just do a roll call to accept it as it's written here. Craig?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Vic?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I vote aye too. The next item, I apologize for, maybe I'll present this one. And I don't know how to do that. It's not funny play right here. Okay. So again, this is with MCC, aligned with NCC, and there is much more we can consider, but we need to start somewhere. So let's just start on creating criteria and guidelines for approval of requests for modifications based on Mass Cultural Council guidelines. The first item says a written request letter or email, it should say, must be submitted by the grantee, designating each change from their original. I'm going to read it from my papers. It's just easier. From their original grant application for their event. The letter must clearly describe each change. Each time there's a change to the event, a new letter must be submitted to MCC. Date changes or extensions. So an event can be modified and also have an extension included within that modification. Approve event date changes, extension requests of all events not to take place later than December 30th, 2021. Duration can be longer or shorter as long as cost does not increase. Splitting the event into multiple parts is acceptable if that's sports event occurring. Format, in-person versus virtual or other will be okay. NCC is not able to facilitate or otherwise produce a change of events from in-person to virtual. All responsibilities will be with the grant recipient. Venue will be okay as long as still benefiting the residents of Northborough, in keeping with regular NCC grant approval guidelines. Scope can increase or decrease as long as basic concept of grant is still met. Medium, intended audience, intended message, and community benefit. Cost cannot increase. If the cost of the event increases due to event modifications, the grantee cannot ask for an increase in their grant amount. If the cost of the event decreases below the grant amount, NCC may reevaluate the grant amount. Other, NCC will strive to support artists by accommodating and approving adjustments as long as the intended initial concept and or the intended benefit to the citizens of Northborough is still the same and or comparable. The event is conducted with compliance to current town and state guidelines regarding health and safety measures for COVID-19. If the event date is extended into the next grant cycle, 2020-2021, the applicant cannot apply for another LCC grant for the same event. I make a motion to approve the proposed procedures on evaluation of grant events due to the COVID-19 pandemic under the published guidance of Mass Cultural Council and NCC.
I second.
Second that motion.
Okay, so discussions, questions about this?
Yeah, I'm unsure that we should mention under cost that it cannot increase. It can increase, right? So just delete that part, cannot increase. And
Okay,
leave the rest of it. If the cost increases, we cannot offer more grant money. If it decreases, we might reevaluate the grant.
I agree with that. I'm going to do it tentatively right now to see how other people feel. I think increasing the cost doesn't really affect the grant amount. We already granted them a fixed amount.
Right.
So anything beyond that is really on their part for this year, unfortunately.
So I concur that we should take out the sentence cannot increase, because there may be an increased cost to situation with changes, and as long as we're clear that we cannot increase the grant to cover any increased cost, I think that's fine. But the way it's written implies that they won't be able to do the project if the cost changed.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, the second sentence there covers it under cost. If the cost of the event increases due to event modifications, now that already explains what would happen if it were to, so you wouldn't actually say cannot increase. It could increase, they just can't ask for more grant dollars, right?
yeah, I think
Agreed. And is that
Agreed.
okay if I get rid of this part, as long as cost does not increase?
Yes.
on the
Right.
third.
So that should be
Okay.
removed as well.
Yes.
There we go.
Can I also point you to the fact that it's December 31st? What is it?
Thank you.
Oh.
I just saw that too. That's wonderful. Thank you, Peg. And Terry, so there you are. Any comments or any modifications to this?
I like it simple. And then I think as things come up, we'll just have to address it as they come up, since this is all my first pandemic.
Everybody.
This life.
Yeah,
Me too.
keeping
And
it
maybe
simple.
we're saying in the email, if there's some unforeseen circumstances that we have not been exposed to, that they can bring their case to us on a case-by-case basis. If for some reason these criterias, that we're open to listening to any situation that falls outside these criterias.
Mhm.
Is that something we can say in the email?
No matter what, we're going to be falling back on whatever the state guidelines are at
Right,
that time anyway. So we still have that
Yeah.
safety net.
We can always check back with our program manager from MCC and then go back and revise our own criteria based on that conversation. If there is,
All with the eye to be as supportive as possible, that they do some form of an event, that they bring some of their talents to the town, especially this coming year. So all with that eye.
I think definitely we have to support them as much as possible. MCC also has some guidance on emergency funds, but maybe we can look at that later, at a later date, to see if that's something that can be done here too.
I did want to add one other thing when we talk about a grantee, particularly considering going to a virtual presentation. I believe MCC may have the ability to consult or to assist an artist. While we do not have that capability, we might want to communicate they should check MCC resources in case there's something there for them.
That's a great idea. I do not know if they do it themselves or they refer the grantees to somebody else that may give them ideas, but they have been doing almost weekly webinars, providing lots of information for cultural councils and artists. So where do you think I should add that to format?
I don't know if I would put it in here as opposed to putting it into the body of the email.
Yes.
Okay.
Or we put it on our website,
Mhm.
as the suggestion.
And also referencing the MCC's emergency funds as nothing more than a link to them in our email to say, there is something available as well. Even if we don't have anything, I don't know if it's possible just to, in the instance maybe where they weren't aware, what the state maybe can do that the LCC can't.
Right, and there are some guidelines for LCCs further on emergency funds, but we have to sit down and read them much more in detail and check with town to see if it's even doable. But I also am looking for a better word than okay that I have here. In person.
Acceptable. Acceptable.
Yeah.
Acceptable.
Okay. The word is acceptable.
I had a
You
Okay.
have it again in venue.
oh shoot.
You got it.
I think I did it. I changed.
Yeah,
both.
yeah. I'm changing this.
Leslie, yes. Okay, great. So do we make a motion to accept the proposed procedures on evaluation of grant event, on evaluation of requests for modifications based on MCC and NCC recommendations, I guess, because we kind of merged our recommendations together as amended in this session.
I make the motion.
Great, and
I second it.
great, Suzanne seconded. Any further discussions on this?
Nope.
Okay, Craig,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Big, Lori,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
and I say aye too. Now, this is the last item on 5, the canceled events. So if the grantee incurs no cost for the granted program, grantees can submit a letter stating that their event is indefinitely canceled. They can apply for a new grant during the next grant cycle. If the grantee incurs a cost for the program prior to the cancellation of the event due to COVID-19, the grantee can submit a reimbursement request, and the NCC will evaluate and consider such costs for eligibility for partial reimbursement of their grant award. The grantee must inform the NCC of the cancellation, explaining when and why the program was canceled and what expenses they have already committed to the project, along with receipts and invoices. I make a motion to accept the proposed procedures on evaluation of grant event change cancellations due to COVID-19 pandemic under the guidance of Mass Cultural Council.
I second the motion.
Okay, Leslie seconds it. Great. Any discussions on this item? Any ideas, any amendments? No? Okay, we're gonna move on to roll call. Craig,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Heidi?
Not that-
Heidi's not here, sorry, I just drew her blank. Big.
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I say aye too. Okay. So agenda item number 6, I'd like to move around the order of our agenda. Oh, actually, this is fine. This is just updating the priorities. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so I can see you all. There we are. Agenda item number 6. Reviewing and updating priorities prior to September 1st, 2020 MCC deadline. As you know, traditionally we review our own priorities and grant criteria right about this time of the year. However, since last year, MCC changed their requirements of community input to an annual basis. It used to be every 3 years prior to that, and now we are required to do it every year, started last year. So we were able to do that last year, and at our last meeting, Heidi had volunteered to work on the community input, but she's not here right now. I don't know how that is going. And we have some new criteria about COVID-19 to digest and really look at it. And for those reasons, I make a motion to postpone the review and update of NCC priorities prior to September 1st, 2020 MCC deadline to our next meeting.
I second.
Thank you. Any discussions or questions about this? Okay. So I'm going to do a roll call. Craig,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Vic,
Aye.
thank you. Lori,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
and I say aye too. So it is approved. The next item on the agenda is council positions annual voting, so election of officers, but I like to move this item to the last, to the bottom of our agenda for tonight, if that's okay with everybody, and move on to item number 8. third annual Culture Fest. And another impacted event due to COVID-19. As you know, this would have been our third annual Culture Fest. And by reading the minutes from last two meetings, we were ready. We were already starting to plan for it. And unfortunately, we have to reconsider everything under these new circumstances. So I think we should talk about it. Any ideas or discussions about Culture Fest?
I would like to put out, if I may, put out a thought that possibly that we use this time as a rebuilding time this year and try and do not hold one, discuss not having one at all in any format, and use this as a time to rebuild from a financial standpoint, sponsorship standpoint, artist standpoint, and come back strong next year. It's a thought I'd like to put out there for discussion.
Okay.
I
Any
like that.
other-
We are always short of time when planning and preparing for our Culture Fest, and this seems like a good opportunity to indeed take some more time to really put it a good one together for next year.
I don't mind having a virtual one because I see a lot of them online, right? So you could pre-record somebody playing music or dancing or whatever, and then put it together as a collage, like I've seen like on Facebook and other places. But the only issue is we're not sure how to go about coordinating that, because you would want to meet the person or talk to them, but now everything's either over the phone or from a distance. So it's going to actually take more time to put it together, even though it looks like it's simpler in format. For delivery, it looks like it's shorter and easier, but it's actually harder on us because the coordination of it is different from like how a live Culture Fest, we do everything the last month, kind of jam it in, and it's in person, and it's, I guess I'm just unsure about how we would be able to accomplish it from a time perspective, since we have no experience in that. And it is June, right? So usually
July.
we start like March. Oh, that's right. July. Yeah.
I would add on to what Vic is saying, given that it is July, and I believe the modified Apple Fest event is still end of September. This whole committee knows how much effort it takes to put on the in-person live event. The church has been very gracious to us 2 years in hosting us, but getting all the volunteers that help us put it on, the decorations, the acts, the publicity, the food, all those wonderful things that we brought together. I think our window of opportunity to do another live event is just almost closed. And it feels to me like we really need to focus more on the virtual event that Vic was suggesting, and then figure out what it would take to put that on. As she was saying, there's things that we don't know, and maybe MCC can help us with that.
I agree, Craig. Plus, we don't know what the governor's orders will be for outdoor events for fall. So even if we did plan for it, we may still not be able to do it. So an outdoor event seems.
Yeah, we don't have guidance from any particular venues.
Exactly. Yes.
And we don't know what's going to happen over the summer. So I think having one in person is off the table. We don't know if we're going to have a second surge, another surge like other states. And I agree with Suzanne. I mean, obviously the time.
Yeah,
we don't have the time now for September.
Yeah, in any format, live or virtual. I think that energy
I
could
agree.
be forward to fundraising, sponsorships, and really coming back with a bang, which is what I think the community would like to see us come back with a bang and spend that time really getting some fundamental stuff done, especially on the finance and sponsorship side.
Terry had her hand up. Terry?
So I have a couple of things. Question: if we because I know, you know, Apple Fest may or may not happen depending on whatever goes on. And I know Ed, on what we discussed earlier, Ed Harlow said, you know, expecting Solar Jazz Festival, but I mean, that could be, that could fall through as well. This is new information that I just learned today. So if it's any help for additional information, my daughter is going to be, she's a rising senior at Simmons College, and I just read an email from their president that this fall for sure is going to be virtual. So they're going to reach out to the nursing majors and the ones who have practicums, but they are ramping up to rejoin if everything allows in the spring. So already, if that's going to be a sign, I think that is going to really help fill in the blanks or strengthen our position that we're not ready. And I'm concerned about, I share everybody's concerns about using up our resources for something and our energy and burning people out for something that has very little chance, an opportunity to really make an impact. Selvi was explaining to me how we had to find out what the community, poll from the community, what they thought of what we did, and report that back to the state from a 3-year to a 1-year. I think people are stressed, and I don't see this being helpful yet. I think people are trying to figure out school and work, and the intention is right, but the timing isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that an outdoor event seems like a far reach at this point. Plus, it may not be safe. However, as a bridge that we are between the artist community and our own community here in Northborough, I feel like maybe we can try to change the format from in-person to a virtual event and still make it happen somehow on a different timeline. You know, it doesn't have to be on September. It can be later in the year if you want to plan it out a little further. But I guess I'm just trying to get a sense from the board how many of you feel like, and this is not voting by any chance, if we should cancel in-person and or a virtual opportunity, or whether or not we should change the format from in-person to a virtual. Like, what are your thoughts on going virtual? Do you want to try going virtual, or do you want to cancel the event? And again, this is not for voting, this is just for discussion. Craig, what are your thoughts?
Did you say my name?
Yeah.
Oh, so my current feeling is I'm prepared to say, very unfortunately, I think a in-person live performance is probably beyond our capability at this point for all the discussion that everybody's had, some terrific points. I would like to not make a final decision on a virtual option just yet, pursuant to understanding, you know, what's required to put that on, as Selby, as you just said, when it could be. It might not have to be concurrent with Apple Fest. I'd like us to take an executive session, or at least the opportunity to get more information together for myself before we took a final decision on doing anything at all.
Yeah. Suzanne?
I'm concurrent with the live that's not practical this time. My thoughts on virtual is that I support an executive session. From the information we have right now, I don't feel we're able to do the kind of job we want if it's July now and we're trying to look for the fall. I would hold hope for the spring, doing it live in the spring. And put our energy towards that. That would be my first choice. Do it in the spring, separate it from Apple Fest. It will be a good time. Hopefully the state will be in a position to support that from a pandemic point of view. But I support an executive session.
Thank you. Terry?
Sylvie, will, from what you're seeing, if we choose to go this route from virtual or maybe not one at all this year, does that impact what the state gives the Northborough Cultural Council, so that I don't want us to be penalized, or if we're going to be penalized somehow, that we have a heads up? Does that happen?
This is an interesting point. Thank you for bringing that up. And I wanted to talk to you about that too. Just as our grant recipients are allowed to have extensions, I believe that local cultural council originated events are also allowed to have their extension requests. So I probably would have to, if we just want to have it, let's say spring of 2021, I would probably have to go with an extension letter asking our program manager that we are thinking about rescheduling our council originated event to this particular date, and can you review our grant for that reason. So now we'll have to wait. But I think that they're so good in supporting all the arts and programs. They want to kind of even be louder during this time about arts and cultural events, regardless of the format. Of course, always safety first. That personally, I don't foresee any problems, but I don't know. Yes, Vic, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I support having a virtual event, and it doesn't have to be a mirror image of our live event. It can be much smaller scale. It could be just one artist this week and another artist another week. Like, it doesn't have to be a one-day event where we pack everything in. So I think we can kind of tailor it to our capabilities. So we could try one first to see if we can manage through the technical aspects of it, if we know how to live stream or pre-record it, and do we need time to edit the session so that it looks professional and then put up on Facebook? How long does that take us if we had one performer do that? And then if that's easy, then we can kind of say, okay, we can do this weekly, or we can do like 4 more every other day, or then we put it together into a collage of different events. So I think we could try that out. We don't even have to live feed anything in the first event. We can use somebody as like a guinea pig to make sure we can go through the motions of actually doing it. And if we find that we spend a whole month and we still haven't gotten anything going yet, then we realize how big it is. So maybe use it as a trial session for ourselves, just to see what we're capable of doing.
I think that's a great suggestion, but we have to always respond back to the town with our modifications. So,
yes, that would just be like a
money will be there.
Pre-work just before we decide if we want to, how we want to modify or extend, just to see if it's even doable. So meaning either we scrap virtual completely, or we try to replan virtual based on a trial run.
Yes.
Can I suggest that we have an executive session to see the likelihood or the feasibility and of doing a virtual one, that we have that meeting so we can brainstorm? That was a great brainstorm by Vic, but to allow everybody a chance to brainstorm, do a little bit of research first, and then come together with thoughts of what is and is not possible.
Yes,
and then go from there, because it's too hard to make a decision for me, not knowing the possibilities, and brainstorming would be important.
I agree. And I can also touch base with our program manager from MCC to see, we are evaluating the criteria for our grant recipients. In a way, we're also grant recipients, but do we get to evaluate our own changes ourselves, or does our program manager have to give us an okay for any changes we may consider? And in addition to that, we need to find a virtual platform and maybe check with someone from the town to see if, as a town council, if we can use a virtual platform for such an event. Lori, I didn't hear your thoughts before I close the discussion, if there's nothing else.
So my first instinct would be to just use our time to prepare for next year, because I'm sure the time we'll have to put in with the technical stuff, with the publicity, it will be a lot even like this. But yeah, I'm willing to
Yeah,
discuss.
yeah, sorry, that what you just said, and I think what Suzanne said about the spring just reminded me. At one point, we had wanted to consider, instead of a fall event, a spring event, and there was no way we could do a back-to-back fall and spring. So if we want to shift the timeline now, this is the best time to shift it. Like if we say June or May, whatever, then now we do it now, right? And I don't know, we're even working in May and June timeframe, but we could work towards that, May to May instead of September to September.
And our grantee reception usually happens in February. So if we have the time to prepare for a spring event now, we won't be too crunched come to February, running 2 events back to back.
Yeah,
We
that'd be the con of it, yeah.
So yes, Suzanne.
I think there'd be, I mean, our fingers can be crossed that by, March, April, May, we'll be able to hold in-person events. And then also, I think there'll be a large appetite for it from the town, which is, and any need to support artists along the way can be done in a very one-off way. Craig's point about supporting local artists streaming. But without all the energy that a fest and promotions and all that sort of stuff, just move it and move our energy to March or April for us, our own event.
Just as a side note, I already received an email from one of the artists, local artists who lives in town, but asking whether or not we will be holding the Culture Fest. So it's wonderful to receive these emails because we only had it for 2 years and people are already looking forward to it. And Suzanne, like you said, I think people are already hungry for having some sort of joy, celebration of arts and music, everything all at one spot. But however, it may not be safe to do it this year outdoors as we intended before. But I still think that virtual can still remain on the table, and we can figure out how and if we can go with it. Leslie, I haven't heard from you, so I want to check in with you too.
Okay, it's safe now. This dog was barking. I kind of agree with a little of everybody, like what Suzanne said, what Beck said. To plan for the spring for a live one, I still don't like the idea of putting all that work in, and we still don't know what's going to happen in the spring. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of work. But I'd like to have, what's it called, an executive
well, it's just a discussion.
meeting to discuss it more in detail. We don't have enough.
No, it doesn't have to be an executive.
Just a discussion.
It could just be discussion on our
Dedicated hour or two just for that topic.
So for that reason, if there are no other questions, any other questions or discussion points? For that reason, is there a motion to move the Culture Fest item on our agenda to our next meeting's agenda? And then, in the meantime, maybe find out more information both from MCC, which I will do. And if somebody could reach out to the town and ask about a virtual platform, and I'm looking at you, Terry, because I feel like you may have the best connections in that regard.
I will take a crack at it.
If you don't mind, if you're available.
We can also talk to the other LCCs to see if anybody else is trying to plan something and how they're going about it.
Oh, they definitely had events taking place already, as presented on one of the MCC, Mass Cultural Council's webinars. I think, I can't remember the town exactly, but I think it was Medford or Somerville. They did a Porch Fest. And there are other similar events like that. I think there was a whole art event that was totally online. And like you suggested, Vic, it was something every week or every day. They had a whole calendar posted. So it wasn't always performing, but some of it were ideas for community members to be doing a project, arts, culture, or music. Yes, Leslie.
I do like the idea of having a weekly performer, just putting
Mhm.
up one person a week. I think we get a lot of help too from Lori Diamond,
If she's available, yeah, we
if
can.
she's available, but I do like that idea, one a week. That's not too hard to do.
So I want to go back to the motion, if that's possible. I like that idea too, Leslie, and we can all discuss it under the next meeting's agenda for Culture Fest. So I made a motion, and I can repeat the motion for postponing all the discussions on Culture Fest items during our next meeting.
I second.
Thank you. Any further discussions or questions?
Yes,
Go ahead, Suzanne.
is this in addition to an executive session on the subject?
It's not an executive session. It's just like a discussion and bringing back the information we found out. Like I will report what I found out from MCC if we were to do an extension and a modification, and then each member can talk about what they
I
want to.
thought I would recommend that we get that information and we hold an executive session just on this topic.
To be honest, Suzanne, I don't really know what an executive session entails entirely. I have to check that, what the formality of such a thing and what it can be held for, and then get back to you. But having it on the agenda doesn't really make it any less, you know, we will still have all the information and this discussion on the agenda available. But I will find that out for you. Yes, Terry? Did you want to say something? Okay. Okay, so any further questions or discussions? Then I'm going to move on to roll call. Craig?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Vic?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I say aye too. And just to let you know, Suzanne, so it's going to be an agenda item for next week, but for next meeting. But I'll find out about, having an executive section meeting or what it entails for you. And if we can do it, I'll report back during that meeting. Next item on the agenda is new member interest and or acquisition. I actually have a person who's interested in joining the council, and I'm very happy about that. She wasn't able to join us today, and I will let her know of our next meeting dates, and hopefully she can make it. But with a lot of our terms coming to an end, including myself, it's important that we keep on recruiting members while the old members are still on the board, so we can help them figure out how to work everything out about NCC. Any other comments or? So we should discuss how we're going to do this. Like, how should we get new members on board?
The chair.
Terry, go.
I wish I could say through the scouts to advertise things or word of mouth. I wish I could say through school. All of our normal avenues are just not there anymore. So I'm just spitballing this out there. If we decide to do some sort of, I'll say Culture Fest, but maybe it's just a one-off, we promote it. Maybe it's just twice a month with an event. If something happens, like Trinity Church, was that one of them? Or microphones, open mic or something. And we link that up and then ask them to say, oh, this happened in partnership with the Northborough Cultural Council, please consider joining. Because I think every time it's mentioned, that's how we're going to be able to generate any kind of awareness. I don't know how else we get our names out there. We can't go out and meet and greet. Selvey, you're the one who you snagged me at one of them. I was working for NCAT covering the event, and I didn't even know it existed. So I'm there, and I didn't know the details. And I've known you for a long time. And Craig and Suzanne, I show up at a meeting and you're there? Whoa, wait a minute. It's like a scout meeting. So I'm really grateful that you did that, because then I get to meet everybody else too, and I'm really having a good time. I want other people to know what a good time they can have too, and be participants. And the ones, can they do that when they do their events? Thank you so much to the Cultural Council, and hey, here's our website, join something. We've got I don't have an answer, but the more times they say
I like that. I like that, going to the I don't know that they're holding coffee houses anymore, but I think they may be doing a virtual coffee house, Trinity, and maybe we can ask them to be part of the virtual coffee house somehow to promote NCC and to get, more interest in terms of membership. Suzanne, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think maybe we can take one or two people can get together offline and maybe put together some a marketing kind of program to try to hit new members, like through the mom's organization, through the dad's organization, through the different channels that exist, the different clubs that exist in town. Maybe if we had two people, we can put some materials together and then list some areas that we're going to go target, put something in the advocate, in the patch saying, here's what we do. And we really want those with the passion for the arts join us. So between the patch, the online stuff, but a group of people, two or so people to come together and do that.
I like that idea. Vicky, you had your hand up.
Two ideas. One right off of what you were saying is the Lions Board. I mean, people drive by it all the time. We can just say, come join us, like sort of like a virtual meet and greet. And we could, have an open Zoom session like this. It isn't, hopefully people will come. This event here was also made public, but you never know who might come or not come. But also, what if the town helped us? And there are so many town committees that I don't know about. Like I kind of hear about them, but I don't really know what they do. Some are obvious, like Historical Society, okay. But even what does the Historical Society do? What is their mission? What do they do with their meetings? So just like you said, Terry, and myself as well, is I didn't know the Cultural Council existed. I'm recruited by my friends, Sylvie and Leslie, right? And you'll recruit all your friends, and eventually I'll be recruiting my friends. So that's how we get members onto this board, through our own connections. But why can't the town help us and help themselves by sort of like just like a little marketing advertisement for each of the committees? And it's kind of like this week is about, or this today, whatever, is about the community affairs. They must have a whole slew of things that they do that I don't know about other than the concert series, right? And then it's be our turn, and then we feature something. What is it about Culture Council that we want people to know? And then we'll say, oh, we have open seats on the council if you want to join.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point. I just want to kind of remind that Recreation used to do somewhat of that role for the town with their emails out to the community with different events and activities happening. And I'm sure if the committees email the Recreation, I know they are not in session right now, but they may be able to include meetings and or other information from town councils and committees in their email.
But it's more than just a meeting. Like I don't want people to come to this meeting. It's a, I mean, it's like, this is like quiet period, basically. None of the committees can really do anything. So take the time to advertise this. Like, what do we do? Did you know that our town offers this? You know, and then every day have a spotlight of that committee.
Well, there could, I mean, I can't answer that question for you, but I think that it is a quiet time and not so quiet time because everybody's trying to figure out what to do with all this uncertainty and changes that is hanging over us. We're dealing day by day. So, okay, any other discussions or questions about membership? Yes, Terry.
I like the idea Suzanne talked about, maybe, I don't know, is this a separate discussion item for an agenda, or is it
No.
getting together, or what do you suggest? I got lost.
So is there a motion to create a committee to, sub-council members to work on new member acquisition, kind of promoting NCC to have more people join from town?
Well, if you just made the motion, I would second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion or thoughts on this, Suzanne?
I volunteer to be on it in some fashion.
Great. Anybody want to join Suzanne in this effort? Suzanne, I'll work with you in this if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. So motion to accept a proposed motion to create a sub-council to work on new member acquisition as amended, with me and Suzanne working on it. And,
I think we vote now.
oh, in seconds?
Second.
Great.
Well, we had Craig seconded.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, I couldn't hear it. Okay, great. And now any other discussions on this amendment of me and Suzanne being on it? Anybody else wants to join or any other questions? No? Okay, I'm going to move on to roll call. Craig?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Vic?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
And I say aye too. The next item on the agenda is any other business as it comes in front of the board. I do not have any. Anybody have anything? Did I skip an agenda item? I did. Sorry, the next item on the agenda is reports by council members. Do you have anything to report? Craig?
I would just remind you, Selby, I did complete the MCC survey a month ago, and I have not briefed our committee on that survey.
Thank you.
So maybe agenda item for the next meeting.
Okay. Noted. I also have information to report that Luis Cotto of MCC will be holding an LCC, Local Cultural Council webinar this Thursday. This was information given to me last week. However, I have not seen an invite yet. As soon as that invite comes through, I will forward it to everyone. And if you're available, it would be great to participate in. Any other reports?
I just have a clarification question for Craig. What survey?
I think it was a month or so ago now, MCC sent out an email saying they wanted to survey their constituents, AKA us as an LCC and all the other LCCs in Massachusetts, as well as some of their other more business-oriented constituents. It was an online survey that I filled out on behalf of our committee. And it was probably 30 questions, basically asking how the LCCs and these business entities were doing in the current times.
Wonderful. Okay, next item on the agenda is setting the next two meeting dates. I'd like to make a motion to set the I have to look at my calendar, sorry about that. July 28th, a Tuesday, or July 30th is the first day. You know what, it's a motion, so I'm just gonna say the date. I'd like to make a motion to set the date of the next meeting as July 28th, and the meeting after that as August, I'm so sorry. August 18th. Can you guys check?
Second that.
Second? Yeah, that's great. Any discussions or questions or amendments?
Both at 7 p.m.
Both at 7 p.m., yes.
Madam Chair, just a
Yes,
point of reference. The webinar license is tied up on the 28th.
yes, thank you. It's a Tuesday. So how about I amend it and make our meetings on July 30th, Thursday, July 30th at 7 p.m. and Thursday, August 20th at 7 p.m.
Was the 18th also booked?
I am not sure. Is that for Mr. Parenti?
Yes, that question was for our moderator.
I don't know if you heard us. Do you have a conflict on the 20th, Vic?
No,
We can do it on this.
I had said the 18th. I was wondering if we could keep the 18th.
The 18th is open at this time, but I
Okay.
don't know if planning has something for that night or not.
Yeah, we don't have to do it a webinar.
Yeah, then if it's just a meeting, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
But I will still amend my motion to hold our next two meetings on Thursday, July 30th at 7 p.m. and Tuesday, August 18th at 7 p.m. Any seconds?
Second,
Thank you, Terry. Any further discussions or questions? Okay, I'd like to do a roll call, please. Craig? We
Aye.
can, thank you. Suzanne?
Aye.
Vic?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Terry?
aye.
And I vote aye as well. Next agenda item is any other business as it comes in front of the board. I don't have any to report right now. Do you have any other business to share? All right, great. And the last agenda item was public comment, but we could not hold it due to technical difficulties. I had postponed agenda item number. Go back. My apologies.
7.
It was, yes, agenda item number 7 on council positions, annual voting procedure, election of officials. As you know, I am the chair currently. Vic serves as the secretary and Craig serves as the treasurer. I would like to step down from my chair position. It's going to be my last year as the NCC member. And I had the privilege of working with most of you for the past 5 years, and I served as the chair for the next 5 years. I would love to support the next chair whenever they need guidance and information, but I would definitely like to have different nominations for the next chair of NCC. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Terry Underwood.
I would like to second that.
Great. Discussions or questions? Terry, you,
I just want to say on the agenda, it has my other name. So
sorry.
Underwood, I just went back to my unmarried name.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Sorry, you appear here
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
meeting
last
as
year.
Underwood too. Yes.
So I really am Underwood. Yes.
Yeah, you are. Don't I have Underwood? I think I have Underwood here on the agenda. That must have been a mistake. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I'm looking at slide 21. I didn't know if that would be confusing for whoever.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. That's
No,
true.
don't worry, the meeting minutes are different. They're in Word doc form. It's not the PowerPoint slides.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I-
correcting. I made a mistake on the slides that I sent you for the agenda. Sorry about that.
Put
But,
the minutes for the standard that I send out. I always carry you as Underwood. That's correct, right? Yeah, all right.
That's right. Okay, great.
Terry, that could have been your legal out. You could have said, no, wrong name, not me.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, on the official agenda is Underwood. I made a mistake on the slides if you're looking at it, which I'm not showing.
Yeah, that's what I was looking
Again,
at.
the slides, my deepest apologies about that.
No,
But yes, so if there are no other, if Terry's okay, and if there are no other questions or discussions, I'd like to do a roll call, please. Craig?
Wholeheartedly, aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Vic?
Double I.
Leslie?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye. Thank you so much, Terry.
Terry?
thank you. Yes,
And
thank you.
myself, I too. And congratulations, Terry. I could not have been any more
Yeah.
excited. You are gonna do.
Now you guys can't all win the lottery at once and leave because it's going to be a mighty small culture fest then.
We're not going anywhere.
Locked in for 3 years, so.
You have a great team behind you. We discuss things and we all rise up to the challenge. So no.
I love this team. I love this team. You guys are so eclectic. And that's why I said, I feel like I found my tribe. This is fantastic. It would be boring if everybody was just a rubber stamp of
That's definitely
the
mutual
other places.
feeling. Great. So we're gonna move on. Thank you, Terry. And we're gonna move on to electing our secretary. Are there any nominations? Go ahead, Suzanne.
I'd like to nominate Vic as our secretary.
Okay. Second?
Second,
Great. And any further discussions or questions?
Was that Lori who seconded? I didn't hear.
It was Terry.
It was Terry.
Okay, roll call. Craig.
Most definitely aye.
I didn't say I would accept. I'm just kidding.
Aye.
Big.
Yes, I.
Lori.
Aye.
Suzanne. Sorry, Leslie.
Aye.
Terry.
aye.
And I say aye too. And thank you for staying on as the secretary. It's wonderful. And for our last position of treasurer. Any
I nominate
nominations?
Craig Cox.
I'd like to nominate Craig Cox for treasurer.
Okay, thank you,
Second.
Leslie. Thank you, Terry. Any motion or discussions?
Hurry up before he says no.
Okay, Craig.
I'll abstain so the record shows it was not unanimous.
Okay, that's
Woo, Fraser.
if you don't want to, we can't give you the position, so we have to clarify this. Do you want to nominate somebody else, Craig, or are you?
Do not want to nominate anybody else. No.
Okay, but you're good taking the position.
It would be my privilege.
That's wonderful. So can we get an aye or an abstain? I don't know, I'm confused now.
Same for Craig.
Final roll call. Craig.
Okay, aye.
Okay, Suzanne.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Leslie.
Aye.
Vic.
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful meeting. If there are no other questions or discussions, this concludes our meeting. And my last meeting as the chair. Thank you so much for all the support and hard work for the last 5 years. I really, really appreciate it. And Mr. Parenti, our fire chief, thank you so much for enabling us to hold this meeting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Selby, for all your
Thank
efforts out there.
Thank you, Selby.
Thank you, Salvi.
My
I'd
Amazing
like to
job.
motion, if I can have the floor, I'd like to motion that we close the meeting.
I second.
I second.
Lots of seconds. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Bye.
Bye.